Okay, let's get started. The International Parking and Mobility Institute is pleased to present today's learning lab titled Why People Park the Way They Do and How to Influence Them with the Technology, presented by 11X. My name is Tyler Perkins, and I'm the Communications Coordinator for IPMI. We thank you for joining us today, and as a reminder, the learning lab will be recorded and posted online to IPMI's YouTube channel within a few days. Everyone who is registered for this event will also receive a post-event emailer linking to the video once the recording is ready. Today's presentation will last 60 minutes with a Q&A at the end. If you have any questions at any point during the event, please feel free to submit them by simply clicking the Q&A button and asking your question there. If you would like to, please add context to your question, including where you are from, where you work, and what you are currently experiencing. Any additional information will help our panelists provide a more informed response. We will get to as many questions as time allows. And now I'll hand it over to Dan to get started.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tyler. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. So today we're going to talk about the psychology of parking and what we can do to influence them. I'm the president and CEO of 11X, and I'll be the moderator today. 11X, for those of you who may not know, we are a smart parking and curbside management technology company. We have a stall occupancy sensor, as well as which we connect to the internet and then provide data to individuals, parking managers, etc., through dashboards, dwell time, turnover with all the parking stats, etc. And as well, we are a parking guidance solution. So we provide that data then out to the variable message signs or our navigation app, ExactNav. Today, we have a fantastic, very experienced panel that are going to basically be hopefully shining some light on the psychology of parking and the sorts of things that they have developed and implemented to help influence parker habits and manage their operations more effectively and efficiently. So I'll turn it over first to Melissa, if you can please provide an overview.
Sure thing. I'm Melissa McMahon. I'm Parking and Curb Space Manager for Arlington County. I've only been in this role for, I don't know, since 2021. So not my entire career in transportation or planning. I'm a planner by training with a background in public health as well. What brings me here today is that my team has recently been undertaking a pilot project. We called it Performance Parking in Commercial Corridors, where we used 11X technology as well as other tools to understand and then with the attempt of managing the demand for parking across a large asset. So our project implemented parking sensors in about 4,500 metered parking spaces in our commercial corridors. And we use the data to adjust price in those areas according to demand, with higher prices incrementing up in areas of higher demand and incrementing down lower prices in areas of lower demand. So I'm really excited to participate on this panel. Over the past several years, we've been learning a lot about what does and doesn't shift the needle with behavior. And we have other technology implementations too, which are, for instance, in structured parking, where the technology and the way people interact and their decision to park or decision to pay is slightly different. And I'm really excited to sort of reflect on those learnings and to talk more about the human side of parking.
Thank you so much. Prasanna, if you can also provide an overview and of your background and what you're looking to accomplish.
Sure thing. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Dan. Prasanna Nanda. I'm at UW Milwaukee and been here for about 10 years. Prior to that, I've been in the private public sector. So it's been 20 some years. So been doing this for a little bit of time. So as for this project and what we're doing, the presentation, working at the university, we don't have a lot of parking spaces. We have about 5,000 for about 25,000 students. So it becomes imperative that we manage everything properly, and we do a lot of mass transit and shuttling. So we have to, between cars and buses, manage parking and transportation, and obviously make sure we're really efficient in doing so. And we've been using LevinX as one of our vendors. We use a lot of different. We have a lot of technology on campus that we use, from Modi for Parking Finder to Parks for Amana One and mobile providers and ALPR. So we use all sorts of things we have available to us to run our operations efficiently. So yeah, looking forward to the discussion this afternoon.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Prasanna. And Mark, you can please provide an overview,
Sure.
introduction.
I am Mark Pratt. I've been in the parking business since 1984, probably longer than a lot of the people on the call have been alive. 42 years in the space. I'm a little different from Melissa and Prasanna, that I'm in the commercial, if you will, for-profit parking operator space rather than a university or municipality, although we do work for municipality. I've dabbled in tech, as some of you may know. Actually obtained the patents for two-way audio video melded into a parking operation, which today is Parker Technology, the two-way audio video that Brian Wolf and Scott Gould took and scaled and exploded. So I was in on the genesis of that, but very clearly Brian and Scott and others took it and really grew it. I've been a parking operator again for 42 years, the president of One Parking, 16 years, the president of Denison Parking, 16 years, president of One Parking for going on 8 or 9 years. I came across 11X, probably like a lot of you on the call, always reading the magazines, always trying to educate myself on the technology that's available and coming. And a progressive client of ours, Delray Beach, contracted with us 3 years ago, and almost immediately we set about working with Dan and his team to install hundreds of sensors in on-street spaces in Delray Beach and also in a series of surface lots, mainly for the reason of know before you go. And it has been very successful. The technology is robust and dependable, and the visitors, citizens and visitors alike in Delray Beach, given a kudos galore on being able to know where they can park before they even come into the downtown area. So, Dan, as you know, I could drone on and on and on. I'll leave it with that and wait until questions.
Perfect. So the format today that we wanted to go through, and I think Tyler, you can take down the slide now so that we can kind of fill the screen with their faces. Yeah, so the format that we're going to follow today is obviously introductions, which we've done, introduce ourselves and where we focus, and then talk a little bit about the psychology of parking. And some of the factors that factor into why drivers and people in general make the decisions they make, factors that they weigh off and trade off when they do that, make that decision to park. And then talk a little bit about technology and future state, how technology can help, and kind of everyone's experience from the panel. And then, of course, we'll open it up for a question and answer period at the end so that we can address any questions that any of you may have. And again, as Tyler said, please put your questions in the the Q&A section here on the Zoom link. So let's start it off first with Prasanna. Look, Prasanna, we all have experience developing habits, right? And habits factor pretty large in the psychology of parking. How does habit formation, in your view, factor into how people behave when it comes to parking?
Sure. Thanks for the question. If we think about it, a lot of things we do are we just do it we have a lifetime of doing whatever. Um, and parking's no different. When we go to work, we take a route, and it's usually the same route. We just do it. We don't think about it, and we're just kind of, unless you encounter an accident or something, we just go. And when you think about our parking, people who come to campus, they take their route and they go park at their specific wherever they've been used to parking. And so when that occurs, which is, it's just all good that they're parking our lots, but if we need to change it or do things, then it becomes a challenge. So people for obvious reasons, if there's a familiar location, the price, safety, or there's if you're going to an event, you want to go by some restaurant, bar, or whatnot. So that's where you're going to go. And can you change it, or can you convince people to go elsewhere, or if you need to reroute them to a different facility, that becomes a bit of a challenge because nobody really likes change. You can do so. It takes, like I said, a little bit of work. Technology is really good. There's lots of good technology, whether it's signs, real-time guidance, payment methods that will make it easier for people that they want to move to a different location. Pricing, of course, you can convince them yay or nay at a certain lot because of that. You can also do improvements to a facility. If bright lighting, new striping, just little things like that, signage, where people are feeling, oh, this is a nicer place to park. And if you want to dissuade somebody, you can always do restrictions, time restrictions, and the type of parking you allow there. You don't allow transient parking, or you change the method of payment. So people, it's not as convenient because you don't want them parking there. And of course, marketing. You can always market a lot if you want them to go there. So those are some of the things. And obviously, as we just mentioned, that when habits are formed, it's tough to change them, but they can be changed, and there are many ways to do so.
Fantastic. Thanks. That's a great perspective from certainly the experience within university and post-secondary education institutions. So Melissa, would love to hear your thoughts as well. I mean, from a municipality standpoint, what are your thoughts around that?
Around habit formation.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think what we heard from community members in our pilot, because we did a lot of different kinds of outreach, engaging them in person, in conversations, through surveying tools. Because it was a pilot, we were basically asking people for their feedback. And one of the lessons is we know people have changed their patterns and habits when it comes to using technology for wayfinding, right? We all use Google, Waze. There are integrated tools that are becoming much more prevalent. And the vast majority of people across, I would say, technology comfort levels have already grown to understand and find ways to make use of those tools. And or know how to ask for help in using those tools because they're expected. And so looping back to Prasanna's point, if there are tools that have helped people find their way around traffic, right? Helped people find their way around a crash or a blockage or something, because those tools are providing that information and they're able to adjust. We haven't learned how to use tools to find parking yet. And that's in part because the folks on this call, maybe many of the folks who are on the panel listening in today, are at the forefront of providing true technological information access, decision support based on parking. And I really think that it's a matter of time. So we are showing to people that technology can provide insights that can help them with future decision support. And the kinds of anecdotes we get have to do with, well, this is where I tried to park. I don't in my pilot projects experience, I don't like the price that you charged me here, but next time I might do something differently. And so we are really looking at the habit formation aspect of this in terms of repetition. So repeat visitors have more than one chance, more than one bite at the apple to get it right. Learning tools and providing different methods for people to get access to the information to make a better decision. And what I hope to do more in the future is really touch on turning points in our lives. So the other thing is that habits form and become really routine when we're sort of static in our routines. But when you get a new job, when you move to a new place, there are big turning points in life that are also real opportunities for forming new habits.
Interesting. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like for example, when COVID happened, or
Yep.
there are these big massive shifts in behavior as not only the large events happen like that, but also individual changes in people's lives for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, a big part of the performance parking pilot was using price to try and influence people.
Yep.
I know that personal habits obviously dictate individual behavior, as you guys indicated, but people also have this personal economics meter inside of them. And, and so when it comes to the price of parking, how does this factor into the psychology of parking?
Right. It's a great question. And the premise of our pilot was that we already knew people were complaining that it was hard to find parking. And so we really went out, we got a grant, we ran this entire project based on the premise of making parking more available more often, where and when people want it. And our plan was to do that by changing the price and providing information about where the prices were different from one another. So over the course of roughly a year and a half and 6 different price changes, we increased prices in areas that were really busy and we decreased prices in areas that were not really busy. And after a year and a half of that, we honestly didn't see a lot of change. And so maybe that means the pilot was a failure. That's not how Arlington took it, because we actually learned a lot from it. And one of the takeaways was that while price is clearly a factor when you talk to people about their priorities, and when we talked to them about their priorities, they said they want it to be cheap, they want it to be easy, and they want it to be close. But we know, and we've communicated out, we can't do all 3 of those things at the same parking space. Particularly in urban areas and in growing areas and in business districts or even on the beach. There's only so much parking and everyone wants to be there. So what are the ways we move these levers? But what we saw was inelastic demand despite price in a lot of our areas. People were willing to pay more than we ever thought they'd be willing to pay. And so one of the other revelations, only really available to us through this technology, because we could actually compare transactions at our meters to occupancy in the same spaces, we were able to see that a lot of people don't pay at all. There's sort of hypotheticals around parking payment compliance or parking fare evasion. Pick your favorite name for it. But it's not a hypothetical anymore in Arlington. In our commercial corridors, we're looking at 39 to 40% parking payment compliance, which means the majority of folks parking when they park are choosing not to pay. And it could be because it's a short trip, or it could be because you name the reason. But we also think that reduces the sensitivity to price. So one of our big takeaways from implementing this kind of technology is that we have to push different levers, and we have to be sensitive to how much people will care about one influence if they have a choice to do something differently. So we'll be working on that a lot.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, that's great. Certainly one of the things for those folks on the call who aren't really aware of how we do that, we have occupancy through our occupancy sensors for on-street, surface lots, parking garages. And then we pull in the payments data actually and compare occupancy to the who's paid. So there, and you get a payment compliance number. And yeah, actually 35 to 40% is very good, Melissa, as you know, because a lot of municipalities, it's closer to 25 to 30%. And so then what you do is you now know that where the violators are, and which leads me to my next question. Mark, you've got a wealth of experience across many different sectors in parking, the operator perspective, municipalities, and just lots of years in the business. What's your experience and been with basically pricing and how it impacts behavior?
Well, there's really nothing much more Econ 101 than parking, and supply, demand, and equilibrium point where they cross is price. And we drive behavior, of course, by price. In my earlier years, it was almost always you price the reserve spaces in certain portions of the garage or the garage itself, hoping to attract the president of the company and some higher echelon employees, and knowing that you have surface lots and other garages that you can put an early bird special in, and you can drive other lesser paid employees into those garages just by the pricing. But to Melissa's point, there's an increasing portion of our parkers who want the convenience and bedamned the price. That appears to me to be growing. There's a certain element of people who really don't care how you price it. If they value their time and they value their convenience more than, in many cases, their money. It's like, I've told my own 4 children, look, you can waste my money sometimes, just don't waste my time. And that seems to be a prevalent thought out there, and a lot of the people that come to park with us in the garages. So I'm looking at this from 2 sides. I'm looking at it from, I've always been an operator. I've always been in charge of driving net revenue, top line, minimizing expenses, net revenue to our many, many clients out there. So my job for 40 plus years has been to drive that profit. We've also taken on quite a handful of municipalities, and many times the municipalities don't quite have the same thought process that I do. It's about the citizens, how they're treated, the convenience they can maintain for them. But Melissa said it right. Everybody wants to park on the 20 spaces that front the Riviera Beach, for example, just down the road. Everybody wants to park there. But those are the premium spaces, so we price them at 3 times a surface lot just about 100 feet further back. And it works. If you want to pay to sit on the beach, then you can pay and sit on the beach. If you want to be further away, then we price that differently, and you can be further away. So price to me definitely drives demand. It definitely drives habits, et cetera, et cetera. I would say, by and large, price is deflated. According to WGI, the average garage space, average cost to build a garage is $36,000. If you amortize that over even 25 years and you can get 7% money, that's $254 a space a month for every space, just to cover the concrete, the building, plus the 15% soft cost. Again, 7% over 25 years, $254. Everybody can put that in their calculator. But, in so many places, especially municipalities, the convenience of the citizens is more important than recovering that cost. And that's just the concrete cost. So the true price to operate the thing is probably $350 a month, and we're seeing many, many garages priced at $75 a month. So pricing could be and probably should be much, 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 much higher, but a lot of factors come into play to keep that price as low as possible. So, but in my experience with municipalities, the non-compliance rate of non-compliance rate, Melissa, of 60% in Arlington, we would put more enforcement on the streets. We're looking for a complete turnaround. We're looking for 60 to 70% to comply, and those 30% that don't, using LPR or roving enforcement with handhelds from some of you that are listening, we would seek those folks out that haven't paid and end up sending them.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mark. Of course, topic very closely related to pricing and payment compliance is enforcement. And so from your perspective, so you said, well, we go and put out a bunch more people and get that compliance up. What's your experience regarding enforcement and how it can affect the psychology of the person parking?
One of the things that has surprised me, and then I'll answer that, is the drama and politics and the folks at the storming the Capitol with pitchforks and torches, threatening to burn it down over simply enacting pay parking in many municipalities. It's very dramatic, and there's an amazing amount of pushback from the typical citizen. We just opened a new municipality about a month ago. The amount of drama and folks ripping posts out of concrete, hiding our parking signs, you name it, calling our folks everything but a milk cow is just, it's amazing the amount of drama and politics that go into enforcing parking to begin with. But more enforcement doesn't necessarily mean more people. You know, I could have a roving enforcement officer with a T2 handheld, and that person can travel so much in an hour. Well, I can say I need to up this, and I can get a vehicle and put Genetec LPR cameras on the top of that, and drive down the street and capture plates on both sides of the street, and I can up my enforcement that way. I could install, for example, T2 or 11X sensors, and Dan, your directed enforcement, which for the room is people pay, and Dan has APIs with the payment portals, and knows within a zone how many people paid, and that's your directed enforcement. And instead of people traveling willy-nilly throughout the street using a sensor and directed enforcement, we know the zones where people haven't paid. And instead of sending them where everyone has paid, we send them where people have not. So there are many ways to uptick the enforcement in a municipal setting or other. And again, Dan, I think I could drone on far too long in my response. I'll just leave it at that. Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mark. Appreciate your insights. Prasanna, what are your thoughts? Does enforcement and doing a more effective job of enforcement change driver behavior?
Yes, is the short answer. So a long time ago, I heard somebody mention this, and I've always kind of subscribed to it. It's the 20-60-20 rule. So meaning that 20% are going to be good. Whatever your rules are, they're going to follow it. 20% are just going to ignore whatever you tell them. They're going to do what they want to do. And 60% is what you can control based on what you do, your regulations, your policies, your rules, enforcement, and so on and so forth. And so that's what we concentrate on. So enforcement revenue for us is around 5%, but it's indirectly responsible for the other 95. So if you think about it, why would anybody pay if they know that nobody's going to be checking anything? So that's what enforcement does. It ensures that people know. And then when you enforce, you just need to make sure you're consistent. And people are smart. They realize that if you come every day at 1 p.m. and then you don't come back till 8 p.m. or something, they're smart. They figure these things out. Now with all the modern technology, with the phones and so on and so forth. In the beginning, when we have 3 different payment methods by phone, and so people would just sit in their office tower, and then as they see the enforcer enter the lot, then they would pay. So there's that's where technology comes into play. I mean, we have the 11X sensors in our surface lots. We can see when they're occupied. and we can see the amount of time the person is parked in those stalls. So we were able to track that and control this. That's why, and then it helps enforcement officers for them to be able to see. They can have a little map on their phone and see where the cars are occupied and where they're not, how long they've been there. So basically, if we don't enforce, it's a Wild West. And by enforcing, we're able to control space turnover because people are going to only park there as long as they're paid. Otherwise, once they're done, they know they might get a ticket, they leave, and that allows us to allow another person that needs that parking spot park in that area. So, we were obviously going to do a much more efficient job and hopefully have spaces available for those that really need it. So, yeah.
Fantastic. No, that's great. Yeah, lots of great points that everyone's been making here today. Interesting ways to try and influence parker behavior. Everyone, does that equation in their mind, and it's not just economics. Like if it's raining today and I don't want to get wet, then I might go and pay more for parking on that particular day. But on another day, I might, my desire for exercise might take over, and I may not drive at all. I may take my bike, or I may park a block or two over, and where it might be cheaper. Melissa Persona at the beginning talked a little bit about convenience, and I talked a little bit there as well. But like when it comes to parking, everyone loves convenience. And so getting to their destination and having a convenient parking spot that is near where they're going. How does convenience factor into parker behavior here?
Yeah. I mentioned this very briefly early on when during the course of conducting our pilot, we did speak to about 1,000 community members with what was essentially a ranking question. And it was those priorities that we had kept hearing over and over again of being close, having it be easy to find versus having it be cheap. What was going to be most important to them? So we were out in the community, we did this survey online, we did it a bunch of different ways. And while lots of responses of the order of those things were different, what they ultimately revealed is they were all equally important. But as you described, Dan, for different people at different times and depending on what their personal circumstances were. So families with young kids have a different set of priorities perhaps than a single person who is a professional and has some disposable income and not a lot of other worries. But what we learned from that and took away from that is that we've got to tackle this from different angles. So it's not enough to build more parking just so that we have more parking. We're in the business of creating a great community and not just creating places for cars, right? So we're looking at a finite asset and how we're going to manage that asset the best that we can. For the people who want it to be easy, our pilot pushed out apps. Exact Nav is an example of one of the apps that we pushed out. So that's an 11x product. They work with us intensely over the course of the past couple of years on improvements to what that interface looks like, because we would get feedback from people. And the goal was to say, hey, if you want it to be more easy to find the parking you're looking for, use an app. It tells you the exact availability and the price of what you can see on the ground today, and it can navigate you there. It doesn't get easier than that, right? But we also didn't necessarily get quick uptake because people are tired of apps and they've got so many apps on their phones. So there's this barrier to uptake there. If people wanted it cheap, we focused on ways to message out the cheapest parking that folks could find. And so the convenience piece was also, how do you make it more convenient for the people whose priorities are affordability, or the people who aren't going to use their phone once they're driving to figure out what's going on. So we actually put digital signs on the street, dispersed throughout our neighborhoods, and those signs show the real-time availability and price of the more affordable spots. So instead of, in a good example would be our Clarendon neighborhood, there's a whole pocket of streets where the parking's pretty expensive during peak hours based on the price increases that we've created, which are peak hour based. But during those same hours, there's spots just to if you turn right instead of turning left, you're going to find the spots that are half that price. So we set up the signs to show where the spots are half that price. And we've gotten a lot of good feedback, both on how to improve the way those signs read and make it easier to read and more intuitive, but also, hey, it's really helpful to know this and to start again thinking about how you make it easy. Because if we can make it easy, they're going to make better decisions.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. Thank you. That's very insightful. Yeah, so I'd like to kind of shift the focus a little bit. We've had kind of a very great discussion on the psychology of parkers and what factors go into those outcomes that parkers are trying to achieve when they park their vehicles and what factors they take into consideration. I'd like to shift a little bit to future state and how technology can help influence drivers' behaviors, which can achieve more desirable outcomes for cities, universities, and other parking owners. So, Mark, I wonder if you could kick us off here and talk a little bit about how technology can help influence driver behavior and help achieve desired outcomes.
Well, you kind of double down on what Prasanna was just saying. I mean, she's gone the full route with an app to tell people where to go, with wayfinding signs to tell people where to go. There just seems to be a misconception everywhere that there is no parking. And I can tell you, since COVID, there's definitely parking. COVID changed the world of parking, and we're still in my neck of the woods, and we're in a dozen different cities. We're still definitely not back from pre-COVID as far as total numbers, and all of us parking operators, transient ebbs and flows, your monthlies are your best indicator of whether we're really back full time in the commercial and the CBD, and we're not, right? It's anywhere from 10 to 20%. It's also changed what we call diversity, and that's the number of people not there at peak between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. But diversity has exploded. In my younger days, 15 to 20% was typical diversity. On this campus where I sat, right in the middle of West Palm Beach, we're looking at 30, 40, 50% diversity. So there's so many people that are working from home, and COVID changed that as well. In my younger days, you would have never been allowed to work from home. Now it's part of it. I would also double down on what Prasanna said on if you don't enforce, chaos ensues. He made an excellent point, and we're seeing it everywhere. When we just started to enforce Fernandina Beach, what either Melissa or Prasanna was saying about what really happened was that opened up the best spaces in the city for the tourists and the customers, and it made the employees seek parking outside that clutch of paid parking spaces and opened the best spaces and allowed return of those best spaces when we started to do enforcement. So I agree with both what Melissa and Prasanna were both saying. I think we just continue, Dan, to push out things like Delray Beach, where we have 11X sensors. I see more and more and more municipalities starting to say, wow, that's working well here, that's working well in Arlington, maybe we should get us some of that, and we continue to push out the information. Parking garages, there are 16 different brands of park equipment, and all of them come with occupancy information, which we can also continue to push into the mainstream and really educate folks before, during, and as they drive to look for space. The combination of all these, it's just going to ease parking anxiety. You know, you hear about an EV vehicle and there's range anxiety. How far can I go before I get stuck? Well, parking anxiety is very real as well. People, where in the world am I going to park? Oh my God, what am I going to do? Some of the things that we all heard 5 to 7 years ago autonomous cars are going to result in no more garages being built. The whole world's going to see autonomous cars driving around, just waiting for their owner to signal them to come pick them back up. Some of these things have definitely not occurred. We also heard that maybe Persona would see this on a campus environment where there's a line of scooters and people are just itching to get on that scooter the last half mile before their destination, park their car a half mile away and get on a fun scooter. I can tell you, people in a business suit in 97-degree West Palm Beach, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for convenience. They're looking for a way to find that convenience. And what you're offering and what many other tech companies are allowing them to find that spot. And so that's all I have for now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, that's a great perspective, Mark, and really appreciate your thoughts and the benefit of your experience. Melissa, you've obviously got a lot of experience in this area as well. Love to hear your thoughts.
The future. Well, key elements, I guess, that I think one is our curbs being digitized. This project that we undertook really allowed Arlington to jumpstart the effort of digitizing our curbs. And so what that means is creating a digital asset database that connects to our physical assets and lets us maintain the policy information over time and have it change in more real time. And the digital curbs are also the foundation of the mapping tools we've been able to make available to the public. So I really think that the future of curb management, so on the on-street perspective, is digital curbs, which create data sets and data feeds, open APIs, which Arlington has really pushed out as a part of this project, leveraging those APIs for decision support, both as far as how a jurisdiction that has the capacity can do it, and we do a lot of it with internal dashboards and such, but also how can the private sector use those open APIs, see that data for themselves, and really turn it into any kind of tool that could help the public. I also think mobile payment and mobile and digital ways of the customer interfacing with the curb is the future. And I think we see a lot of that with some of the transformations of the technology services that people are choosing. In Arlington, over 75% of our curb space parking stays that are being paid for with mobile payment today. And I think that supports other interests of local governments, like lowering the capital costs of maintaining equipment over time. So the better the uptake of that, the easier it is for folks. You can pay for your parking without getting out of the car into the rain. So if that's what, if you've arrived somewhere on a rainy day, it just increases that accessibility and that ease of use for the average customer. And all of those technology pieces can create more transparency and more hopefully reduce decision fatigue and create new habits that will benefit us in the future.
So it sounds like there's hope.
Oh yeah. You got to look at the long game. I'm sure everyone on this call would agree that in the long game there's a lot of hope and there's a lot of opportunity for change.
Oh, great. Yeah, fantastic. Prasanna, yeah, I'd love to hear your perspective. Obviously, universities, post-secondary campuses are very different beasts than cities, but there's a lot of similarities as well. And so would love to hear your thoughts on the topic of what the future state and can technology help?
Yes. So, if you think about a university, obviously you have a lot of the younger people. And so when you have a younger demographic that you're dealing with, they're so used to all the technology, maybe versus other modes or other areas, whatnot. So when they are used to, being able to do everything on their phone and their, all the different technologies, I couldn't tell you what all technologies they use, but so they have an expectation that we are going to be able to provide them something similar to what they're used to. And so that's where I think is the technology, and unfortunately, parking technology is not current, for different reasons with, let's say, what happens every, other industries. And hopefully one day we will be there, but at this time, we always seem to be a few years behind. So within what we have, we always try to do the best we can. And so when we use our technology, we try to use it to help our customers. What ways can we do that? For example, if I use our sensors, we get info data, parking patterns for days, times of the week. So we know different lots, when it fills up, when it empties out, turnover. With classes, you have a lot of, 11 a.m. to 12:15, there's a class. And so students come in, leave. Um, Different days of the week. We know on Fridays, nobody's here. Professors don't teach. So it's pretty dead. So it helps us when we have events on campus. Our departments want parking for whatever, and we're able to provide them better information as to, we recommend these days the parking, there's a lot more available and this lot and so on and so forth. So it really helps us as we plan our operations, and for the information we're able to provide either our students or our departments who have arrangements that they're having meetings and whatnot. So there's other technologies, and I think Melissa and Mark did a great job of talking about those. And so I'm not going to just bring those up, but I think I'm bullish on technology about as we go forward into the future. As I think Mark mentioned a while back that just need investment in the parking industry. Players like 11X are a great start, and there are others out there. So yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So this is perfect. It leaves us about 10 minutes for questions and answers. I'm just going to introduce Mark Hall, who is the head of marketing at 11X. And Mark, I think, has gone through the questions, and we'll ask the questions of the panelists.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. We've got a few here, and excuse me, some for those in the city side, and some for you, Prasanna, on the university side. So we'll start with one that came in earlier. It's just around clarification on the city side. The question is, did I hear correctly that typical payment rates in city lots are 25 to 30%, and 35 to 40% would be considered on the higher end? So Melissa and Mark, maybe you guys can handle that one. It's about clarifying the parking rates.
I'll just say that the data we've collected in our pilot project, which covered approximately 4,500 metered parking spaces on the curbs in our commercial areas, the payment compliance rate was 39 to 40%, making it the 60 to 61% not paying but having parking stays. That's what we, and it was consistent for a year and a half plus of data collection. It fluctuated a little, but it didn't really change.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Just before Prasanna or Mark jumps in, I guess was the question. So I made the statement earlier, and I was making the statement based on all of the data that we have with all of our customers who are using this technology. And so when I said 40% is good, that is good. Usually it's much closer to 25 to 30% compliance. And then the issue with enforcement is that because it is fairly difficult to enforce in cities, it's a little easier in lots and parking garages, obviously. But the majority of the stalls that Melissa was talking about are on-street stalls, so that's really where the context and the enforcement rates end up being about like 10% of people get caught, sort of thing, that sort of number. So 10% of in Arlington's case, 60% who don't pay. That would be a typical industry average across the board. So, Mark, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to add a quick related factoid. The one structured parking garage that Arlington County manages as a public parking facility with a ticketless, gateless system today does seem to have close to 90-95 payment compliance rate. So I would just say that people behave differently in garages than they do on the street.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the numbers that I've been stating are on street. Mark, anything to add, Prasanna, either of you before we move on?
I agree with Melissa. Let's look at this with garages. I'm not of the mindset that the world is so enlightened and follow the rules enough that when you have a gateless facility, parking garage, that people pay. I mean, we've had facilities where we've been fully gated, removed the gates, and I've got a wonderful picture of a guy driving out and knowing he's been videoed and he's flying us the bird in the camera, saying, you know what, you got no gate, I'm not going to pay. In my mindset, a magnetics or an Elka gate is a $3,000 or $4,000 rounding error that gets me 99% of my money before people leave. So would I rather put in a gate and capture the money? Would I rather chase the money, spending a lot of time and effort to chase it? I'm a gate kind of guy. I think that we can get 99% of our revenue in a controlled parking garage. I think out in a world where you have an LPR camera at the entry and an LPR camera at the exit, the compliance is much improved. And, you know, frankly, as long as the system's working and we're getting the LPR reads we should be getting, then we're going to have a much, much higher total compliance rate, especially in a municipality where you can tie the payment of a citation to the registration, the annual registration of your vehicle. If you don't pay that citation, you don't get to register the vehicle. So, and parking is like thumbprints. Every garage and every situation is different. Every garage comes chock full of nuance. It's completely different from the garage or the lot across the street. So you have to treat every one of its own individual entity, and you have to cover the nuance and know what's going on.
Fantastic.
I would quickly add that some of the people on here, we've got quite a few attendees. Some have developed the QR code that allowed us, and 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we couldn't control and monetize some of the lots out on the fringes of the CBD, the central business district. We would have to crunch power, pour concrete, get equipment. Now they can drive on, see a QR code, and we can start to control things that way. That needs to continue. We all need to fight to allow that to continue. There's a hue and cry about stopping that, one political reason or the other. But what I hear is we have 100 million parking spaces in America, and only 4.6% of those have been monetized or controlled. So some of the technology, like Dan, what you've done and what others have done, that's allowing us to continue to control, to push people where they need to go, to alert people where they might want to go, and et cetera, et cetera. So I see good things for the future of parking.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Mark Hall, got a question. Next question there.
Yep, absolutely. We got one for you, Persona. Has UW Milwaukee considered time of day / demand pricing to shift parking demand away from certain lots on campus?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. That's a challenge. Anybody that works in the public sector, when you look to do any sort of demand pricing, or as people will call it gouge pricing or surge, whatever. There's different terms that we have. Our people call it. You know, I would love to be able to do that, but it's a hard sell in a campus environment when you want to do it for certain times, days. But that's something that definitely we've looked into, and we tried, but right now we have not been successful. It has to, I guess, like many universities, they're scared to do things. They want to see, others doing it, successfully doing it before they jump into it. So unfortunately, that's my answer.
Okay, great. Mark, next question. I think we might have time for one more. Yep.
Yeah, we'll jump back to the cities, to the city side. Can you comment on progressive parking related to when a city is looking to move away from it after 3 years of success, and how to restructure pricing? Optics are that weekends are expensive in the downtown area, and that businesses are being affected by the parking price. This person's being asked to restructure their pricing.
Melissa, you've got lots of experience, I think, directly with.
Well, interesting. So it sounds like this questioner, looks like Mr. Lopez, has variable rates in more expensive places and less expensive places, but they're being asked to rethink it because businesses are claiming that the prices are too high and it's affecting their customer base. So I guess what I would say is we don't have experience with that yet. There has not, throughout the course of our project, even though we did a lot of proactive outreach to businesses, we never got negative business input on the prices that we'd set and any indication that they were seeing a downtick in customers based on prices being more expensive outside their door versus around the corner. But that said, I think the key, if you compared it to other things that have changed in the right of way, one of the things that happens is you try to do before after data collection. So pick different kinds of data points that you can actually try to tie hard numbers to the claim. Some instances are like installations of protected bike lanes in front of businesses that used to have parking. The claim was you're going to take away my customers, but then in some jurisdictions, they did before after comparisons of things like sales receipts and found that there were no negative impacts. So I would encourage this respondent to think about ways that they can look at other data sets to really see if the fear is backed up by reality.
Okay, yeah, great, fantastic. I think in the interest of getting as many of these questions answered as possible, I think we'll have one panelist answer each of the questions. So, because I know we have quite a few here, and we'll probably end up going a few minutes late given the volume of questions here. So, yeah, Mark, what do you have next?
I'm going to ask, change the order up a little bit here because this one's been asked twice or supported once it was put in, and maybe Mark Pratt, you can chime in on this one. It's about municipalities, and it's as municipalities increasingly transition to digital parking technologies and phase out traditional physical meters. Many are encountering challenges with legacy contractor bagging processes. In cases where a physical meter is no longer present to designate a reserved or no parking space, is the only remaining option to cone off the area. Are there technology-based solutions available to ensure that designated reserved spaces remain protected from unauthorized parking?
A quick answer, one that just came to me. There is a device from RiseTech, RISETEK, that is akin to a track hurdle, and you communicate it with it via Bluetooth, and you can communicate it from your phone to the device a surprising distance away. And we have some pretty high rollers down here in West Palm Beach. You put it in a space, then Mr. Ross of Related Ross, who owns the Miami Dolphins, pulls in his Maybach and hits a code on his phone, and the track hurdle goes down. Kind of like when Batman used to pull into the back garage, the old TV series. Many of you remember that one. So yeah, there is that. I see the digital acceptance. The thing that came to mind there was no more hanging permits. Your plate is your digital permit. I tell you, the heaviest lift on us down here has been just the onboarding process to get a digital permit. Again, all parking's different. It's different up in Chicago where we have locations down here, but I'm in the retirement capital of the universe where the average age is about 92. And people trying to get a digital permit are just confounded by the process. Once they get that digital permit, which is their license plate, then things become quite easy for them, and they come back, oh, this is really pretty cool. But just the process of going online and onboarding the proof of residence is so scary to some of the population and so difficult for them to do. That's the heaviest lift on taking away permits. and creating a digital permit, which is the license.
Fantastic. So we're at time here. It's 3 p.m. So I just first of all like to thank Melissa, Prasanna, Mark for your participation and excellent insights. Mark, thanks for your excellent question and answer handling, and Tyler, I'd like to thank you and IPMI for organizing this. Yeah, so thank you very much. For those of you who didn't get your questions answered, please feel free to reach out by email, and we can do our best to get your questions answered.
Thank you, everyone, for those great questions. As we wrap up today's program, I'd like to extend a sincere thank you to 11X for hosting today's Learning Lab, along with our amazing presenters. IPMI truly appreciates all of your support. And thank you to our audience for spending part of your day with us and engaging throughout the session. That concludes today's presentation. We look forward to seeing you at a future program. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very much,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.